1982. Possibly the best year in movies. Last Movie Outpost presents our series celebrating the movies of 1982, a year that had more classics for movie geeks than any other in memory. And we start with the big dog that caused so many other movies to get overshadowed that year, and who indirectly caused the great video game crash of 1983. E.T The Extra-Terrestrial. It's funny, too, of all the movies that have come out over that time period, E.T. has managed to not have any sequels or reboots or reimaginings. Well, except for that Super Bowl Xfinity commercial back in 2019. It did star Henry Thomas introducing his kids to E.T., who drops in for a visit, and no government terrorism was involved. No, E.T. manages to stand atop all the movies released in 1982, and quite frankly before and after that year, by box office receipts and a wide margin at $400 million domestically. Yes, it continues to stand alone, unraped by Hollywood. Of all the 1980s nostalgia that's come out trying to capture the wonder of sci-fi movies from the 80s, from Stranger Things with some success, to Super 8 with much less success, the feeling they are trying to capture was E.T. E.T. was everywhere back then, you couldn't get away from it. Every product had that squashed walking sack of liver sausage with eyes on it. Even liver sausage.
We're in the money, we're in the money. We've got a lot of what it takes to get along. We're in the money, the sky is sunny. Oh man, depression, you are through, you done us wrong.
But if you saw it back then, or even now, and didn't squirt a few tears, well then you're a soulless monster, and I will be calling a young and old priest to give you a visit. E.T. told a very simple but pretty deep story about divorce and broken homes, about kids dealing with being alone, and finding empathy and connections in a world that, as far as they were concerned, was pretty uncaring. At least as far as Elliot was concerned, as his brother and friends ignore him. His mother is left being the mother and is to blame, wrongly so, as far as Elliot is concerned, that his father isn't there. He doesn't care about hurting her and saying things that are clearly designed to hurt. His empathy meter is totally on the fritz. In the meantime, E.T. is an alien botanist that is left behind unintentionally by his ship and is forced to find a friend on this apparently hostile planet. He and Elliot find each other and form a bond that is beyond what many will ever have. Elliot and E.T. feel each other's feelings, and that gives Elliot a new perspective on life. Using the toys and other gadgets available to him, E.T. is able to make a crude transmitter and contact his people to tell them that he's alive and well and needs to get back home. Will he be able to get back to them before the government finds him? What if he can no longer sustain himself on product placement? I mean Reese's Pieces. You know the rest of the story. There's no need to go further. And if you don't know the story, well then you need to turn this off right now and rectify the situation with an E.T. Blu-ray. Make sure you have some tissues. Spielberg's parents had divorced when he was a boy back in 1960, and he had filled the void with an imaginary alien friend which he said was, quote, a friend who could be the brother he never had and a father he didn't feel he had anymore. During the shooting of Raiders of the Lost Ark in Tunisia back in 1981, when he was far from his family and friends and feeling pretty alone, he was reminded of that time of his life, and he and Melissa Matheson began developing the script. Interestingly, it was a subplot in another movie he was making called Dark Skies that was a more horror suspense movie about malevolent aliens, but that was dropped in favor of E.T. He eventually got the green light from Universal after some back and forth with Columbia Pictures, who originally owned the rights to the Dark Skies script. Columbia would ultimately get 5% of the net profits, which later they recalled that money was more than any of the other films they released that year. Once set, Spielberg enlisted Carlos Rambaldi to create E.T.'s designs, and he originally worked with him on the alien designs in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Once it was made, M&M's refused to allow their product in the film, believing that alien was way too scary for kids. This is why E.T. eats Reese's Pieces and why Reese's pointed and laughed at the M&M company for the better part of the rest of the 80s. Casting was a bit of a process as hundreds of boys auditioned for Elliot, but Henry Thomas stood out. Drew Barrymore impressed Spielberg with her stories of how she led a punk rock band at age 6. I don't know, with Drew it might have been true. Robert McNaughton took on the role of Michael because of his brotherly chemistry with Henry Thomas. The music became the 5th major cast member after the kids and E.T. thanks to John Williams. The music for the chase sequence was so good at the end that Spielberg decided to edit the sequence to the music. E.T. was released to theaters on June 11, 1982, and stayed at the top of the box office for 16 weeks in a row, still a record to this day. It was one of many Spielberg movies that took our breath away back in the 70s and 80s. But it was also the most emotional and deep movie he had made up until that point. Spielberg himself has admitted that E.T. gave him the confidence to do more, such as The Color Purple, Empire of the Sun, and Schindler's List. E.T. had all the heart and depth of later Spielberg movies, combined with the spectacle and crowd pleasers that marked his earlier career. It still sits comfortably in our memories, with no sequels or reboots to vandalize it. If you haven't watched it in a while, give it a shot. Just don't do the special edition, which Spielberg himself admits was a mistake. Tune in for our next spotlight from our 1982's movie list. There are so many, we'll just let you guess. And what are your favorites from that year? Comment down below, and of course, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.